So I'm here with Lisa Bilyeu, who has a new book coming out, or is actually already out. You can already get it, called Radical Confidence. Lisa is a serial entrepreneur, has had amazing successes, and has an incredible story. Lisa, welcome. Thanks for joining me. And can you just tell us what radical confidence is?
Jeff, so many people would look at me, and they would look at me being in front of the camera, me doing content, and I just kept getting asked all the time where I get my confidence from. And Jeff, I was like, who are they talking to? It didn't feel real to me, because if you could hear the voice in my head, if you could hear how petrified I was every time I got in front of the camera, if you could hear how negative that voice in my head is, you wouldn't think it was confidence. And so I really had to pause and say, what are people seeing that they perceive as being confident? And I realized is they just see me moving forward. They see me taking the steps. They see me stepping in front of the camera. They see me getting on stage. But what they don't see is how petrified I am all along the way. And so when I was writing about it, I was like, that's what it needs to be about. It's about radical confidence. It's not about feeling great about yourself before you get started. It's about having radical confidence. That means thinking outside the box, taking your insecurities, your inadequacies, the negative voice in your head, and still move forward. But it's not blindly moving forward, because we all know just telling someone to do it even when you're scared doesn't work. When you have crippling anxiety, if you have depression, if you can get in your own head, just telling someone to do it isn't going to activate them. So for me, it was really about giving the steps. So I've called it the 10 no BS lessons to becoming the hero of your own life, because I use these lessons every step of the way, where I've gone from being stuck for 8 years, where I didn't ask for more. I didn't tell my husband I was unhappy. All I was doing every day was going through the motions of putting out his clothes, cooking and cleaning for him. And it wasn't until I used radical confidence that actually pulled me out of that to then become the hero of my own life, to be the person you see today.
And here's the cover. You can see it in the background. This looks like someone who is just projecting massive, massive confidence. You talk about the purgatory of the mundane in your book.
Yeah.
And where people are just, they just get trapped into gradually evolve into this life that's maybe good enough, but it's not what they truly want. And how do they go from that to the confidence to really move forward and start doing something?
Yeah, Jeff, have you met just incredible people that have just done amazing things? You ask them their story, and so many people just like, well, I hit rock bottom, and so I had nowhere else to go. And so that really does light a fire under their ass, it jolts them into action. But what about the people like myself that I didn't hit rock bottom? And that's where in hindsight, I think of it as, why I called it the purgatory of the mundane, because I was just stuck. My life was just mundane enough. It didn't hit rock bottom, so it didn't jolt me into action. And it definitely wasn't thrilling and exciting. And so each day I just went with emotions. And every time someone asked me how I was, how life was, I'd be like, I'm fine. I'm all right. And how many of us live in that moment of being fine or just all right? And is that really what we had as kids? That we were just like, when I get older, I want to be fine. No, we have these big freaking dreams. And, we tell ourselves we can be anything, but something happens along the way where we then become an acceptable party in saying, yes, just fine is okay life to have.
So you in reading your book, you were sort of in that the purgatory of the mundane, and it's an interesting how you even got there. I'm not going to give it away in the book, but then with Quest, you it felt to me like you just got pulled in. All of a sudden it was just took over your life, and you were constantly stepping into a function that you hadn't trained for, that you didn't know you had skills for, that you just had to reinvent yourself every day and reinvent the business. What was that like?
Yeah. So when I was stuck for those 8 years, I felt like I needed the confidence to speak up. I need confidence to say that I'm unhappy. I need confidence to say that I want to change in my life. And because I didn't feel like I had the confidence, I didn't move forward. So it ended up being where I just saw my husband being profoundly unhappy after 8 years of him just working every single day, a job he didn't really love. And so in that moment, I realized realized there's nothing more important than my relationship with my husband. No money, no success, nothing. And so I just said, we have to stop what we're doing right now, because we are going down. We've given up our lives and our hearts for money, which we thought would make us happy, and it clearly hasn't. So we have to make a change. That change ended up Tom going into his business partners at the time saying, I hate my job. I hate what we're doing. I want to quit. And that him speaking up was what became the catalyst to a new startup company. And so the startup company, my husband comes home and he's like, all right, babe, we've got something now that is actually predicated on passion, something that we can get up every day, even if we're failing, that we would love to do. And I was like, all right, babe, having the identity of being the great supportive wife, because I'm a Greek Orthodox girl and I was taught as a young age that I would end up being a great supportive wife. So I fell into that trap. I fell into that. And so when he came home with this idea, he's like, oh, and we're going to put the house up for collateral, but we're going to love to do it. And so I was like, okay, like that sounds great, babe. What can I do to help? Because again, my identity was being the person that jumps in to help her husband. And so I was like, what can I do to help? He's like, oh, we just ship a couple of bars from the living room floor when we're making them, if you don't mind helping with like the knives and the rolling pins. And we just would rent a kitchen by the hour and we would make protein bars. And so because they were still at this other company that they were trying to sell to exit to then create this startup company, I was the only one available. And so they were just like, oh, well, Lisa, you're free, go do this. Oh, Lisa, you're free, go do that. So I went from shipping bars off my living room floor to the company grown at 57,000%. So I wasn't equipped to face that kind of growth. I wasn't equipped mentally, emotionally, confident. You know, my confidence definitely wasn't equipped for it. But in those moments as we grew, I had to ask myself every time I faced an obstacle, what was more important? My ego, which means, oh God, you don't know what you're doing. Stop doing it right now, right? The ego is there to protect you. And it's telling me you don't know what you're doing. Don't do it. You're going to fail. You're going to fall. Or actually saving my house. So saving my house meant I had to overcome it. I had to figure it out. And so every time I stopped and said, well, you can feel badly about yourself, Lisa, because you have no idea what you're doing, but that causes you losing your house, or you can figure it out, really did propel me to just keep going. And so to the point where, I mean, you know, it was as silly as I was shipping bars from my living room floor, then we grew, and then all of a sudden I had bigger packages. And so we had the UPS guy that was coming to pick it up. And so he would come, he's like, you know what, it'd be much quicker if you put everything on a pallet. And so I'm like, okay, great, thanks for the, you know, advice. As soon as he leaves, I'm like, what the hell is a pallet? So I'm like running back to my laptop and just typing into Google, what is a pallet? I see the image. I'm like, okay, I kind of think I know what, you know, I've seen those before. Where do I get one from? So I type in, where do I get a pallet from? And so I just figured it out from something as small as that once upon a time would be like, I don't know what he's talking about. Forget that. I'm not going to listen, because it would have dented my ego to admit that I didn't know. But now I realized by not knowing doesn't actually define who I am. And in that pursuit of overcoming obstacles, I started to find what Lisa Bilyeu was made of. I started to find pride in the fact that I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm the kind of person that doesn't stop there. I'm the kind of person that can figure it out. And that mentality is what pivoted me from being the stay-at-home wife that never asked for anything because I thought I needed the confidence to do it, to realizing I didn't need confidence. Confidence ended up coming as the byproduct of taking action, falling on your face, making mistakes, getting back up, and over time becoming competent. And the competence part is what eventually leads to the confidence. And that understanding, that knowledge now is exactly what allows me to keep moving forward when I'm scared, when I'm petrified, when I don't know what I'm doing. I was just on a live television show the other day, and I was like, I've never done live television before. But I had radical confidence, which means, Lisa, you may actually fail right now if you do it. But the great news is you're the type of person that can learn.
That's so great. Can you talk about the difference in your book? You talk about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And can you just talk a little about that a bit?
Yeah, thank you. I think that this is really the fundamental thing of everything that we're talking about right now. And to understand this, I think it will be the first stepping stone for anyone that is finding themselves stuck or in a life that they don't want. A fixed mindset is just a person that just feels like who they are today is who they're always going to be. And so if you don't know something, then that is a reflection of who you are. And that means that you shouldn't try because you're never going to be able to learn. The growth mindset is just a person who just believes that they can figure it out along the way. It doesn't mean having blind confidence in yourself that like, oh, I've got this and I'm going to nail it. No. It's just the person that thinks, oh, impossible is just a word. And instead of thinking something instead of thinking something is impossible, shifting that mindset to say, I don't know a way yet. And that type of small little pivot in how you think then absolutely will dictate who you are and who you show up to be. Because if I think something's impossible, then guess what? I just don't try. But if I think I don't know a way yet, it makes me pivot my mindset into being, okay, so where do I start? And then if I start and I fail, I repeat to myself, I don't know yet. Keep repeating, keep refining. And eventually you'll get there. So it really is a mindset of how you think and how you show up. And even if right now you have a fixed mindset, in just believing that you can potentially shift, or you can be the person that acknowledges you have a fixed mindset, it's actually the first sign that you have a growth mindset, because you're just acknowledging where you are.
Right. I agree with that. I think for some people watch, and we've got a lot of entrepreneurs watching this, and I think the reason we're at where we're at is we have this growth mindset, and not everyone has it. But I think what you just said is critical. Just even the recognition, oh boy, I have this fixed mindset. That shows you're making that step.
Exactly.
And oh, by the way, not everyone, we're all a continuum, right? And we all have areas where we still have a fixed mindset, where we still have growth. None of us are perfect, or at least I'm not.
I love that you said that, because that's so important to say, because we get into a repetition, we get into habits of thinking a certain way. And so I think, to your point, it's important to recognize you're not perfect, don't aim for perfection, but how do you keep moving forward? What are those things that you can do in your life that allow you to notice when you've slipped back into a fixed mindset? And so even just like number one is, who do you surround yourself with? And do you have a relationship with them where you've given them permission to call you on your fixed mindset when it shows up? So the example I actually give in my book is, my mom had a completely fixed mindset. She was in her 70s, morbidly obese, and would still say, I can't lose the weight, I'm too old. Now, in this moment, this is a big part of why we went into mindset in the first place, which is why we do what we do, because we do believe that how you think will dictate how you show up every day. And so my mom happened to have retired right as we started Impact Theory. So she's now listening to all of Tom's content. A year and a half goes by, she loses 120 pounds. Now, she goes from the woman in her 70s that has had health issues her entire life, that keeps saying, I can't lose the weight, I'm too old, diets don't work for me. These were the words consistently out of her mouth. She has now understood what a growth mindset can be. And a year and a half later, I call her up randomly to see how she's doing. And she starts telling me a story about how it's raining outside. And I immediately in my head go, oh, here's going to come the fixed mindset, where she's like, so I didn't work out, I didn't eat healthy today because it was really gloomy outside. And so I'm literally waiting for this fixed mindset to reappear. And in that, she goes, so what I did was I actually drove to the nearest grocery store. I did 4 miles up and down the aisle inside so she wouldn't get wet. She bought an apple, said thanks to the cashier, and walked out. Now, that's the growth mindset. Now, in this whole story, I'm talking to my mum about a month later after that, and I'm telling her a story, and I'm like, yeah, and so I wasn't able, it's not possible. And she called me on my own fixed mindset. So this woman who in 70 years had never understood what a growth mindset was, is now has a growth mindset, is now surrounded by me, and she calls me on my fixed mindset. And when she's like, I said something was impossible, she's like, well, that's not very growth mindset like of you. And in that moment, I was like, Mum, respect. Thank you for calling me on something I didn't even see.
Wow. So Lisa, how does that feel? What I mean by that is, so you've had impact on millions of people. Tom's had impact on millions of people. But to have that impact on your mom, I mean, like, what does that actually, how does that feel?
Mind blowing, and also very proud, because that has been my mission. So, if we want to talk about a mission for a minute, when we talk about a fixed mindset, when we talk about getting stuck, when we talk about not moving forward, how do you keep moving forward when you don't feel great about yourself, when you're failing, when maybe you start slipping into the fixed mindset? Having a mission that you can tie so strongly to you and to your heart that keeps allowing you to propel yourself forward is imperative. And so as we started, so Tom's family is also, his mum and sister were morbidly obese. And so my mom actually growing up was borderline anorexic. So I had a mother that was borderline anorexic, and then in my teens flung to the other way and became morbidly obese as well. And so me and my Tom, everything we've done as we started to predicate our lives not based on money. So that shift that I talked about coming out of the purgatory of the mundane after 8 years, it was predicated on a mission. And so the mission for Quest really was to help people with their weight. And so all along the way, Tom would wake up every morning and say, it's hard. I think it's Mother Teresa, where it's like, no one will fight for the masses, but everyone will fight for the one. And so having that one person in your life that you can connect with every time you feel badly about yourself, every time that you feel like you're failing, who is that person that you're thinking of? And so Tom would think about his mum, and I would think about my mum. And so as we're creating content, as we were creating impact, as we were really trying to make a difference in people's lives, I was waking up every day and saying, if I can't even impact my mum, then I haven't done my job. And so having heard that, it is the most beautiful thing and the most beautiful reassurance, like it's like a notch in your belt to prove that you've done it. It became that notch where it was like, oh, all these hardships, all these moments where I felt badly about myself, I felt incompetent, I was scared to get on stage, I was scared to get in front of the camera, I was scared to sit at the table with, let's say, 5 other men who are entrepreneurs. All these things that I fought to overcome, it just becomes the confirmation that it was worth it. And so I then it just reaffirmed how important a mission is. It reaffirmed how important having a connection with that one person, that when your company is going, failing, or when something's going wrong, you keep showing up.
Mm. That's amazing. And I'll tell you, like, I've often heard the saying, and I believe it, is no one can be a hero in their hometown. It's like, we can go out there and impact millions, but to actually impact your family is like a whole nother level, because, your mom thinks of you still as the little 2-year-old walking around, and that is truly remarkable to have that impact on your mom. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been definitely one of those proud moments, and I try and talk about it even on my social page, and in just the mindset of whoever you are right now thinking that you can't achieve something, it's like, who are the examples that I can help show? And it's like my own mum, to be in her 70s, and she's held the weight off, by the way, so that's obviously an important part to also talk about. She's really held the weight off for, I think, like 4 or 5 years now, where she's had, obviously with COVID, and she didn't get COVID, but just with the situation, there's so many reasons why people can backtrack into old behavior, into old habits, into an old mindset. And so being able to have somebody who's able to constantly have content that we're creating is also another thing for us to keep motivating us to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you were talking about that idea of just finding a way, it reminds me of something one of my clients, Joy Foster, said, who's from London, who said, I don't know the how, but I know the how is known. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I love that quote. Or our mutual friend Marie Forleo says, everything is figure outable.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people look at someone in the public eye, they that there is no overnight success. We all know there's the overnight success after all 10 years of working really hard, who we all are. None of us got there without figuring a lot of things out. So for all the entrepreneur, like one of my favorite, what do I call it? Metaphors is baby steps. I tell people it's just the baby. It's just knowing what the next step is, not knowing what the 5th step or the 10th step or the 100th step, knowing the next step and just doing it. And maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but moving. What would, just in reading about Quest, and of course you've done it again with Impact, how hard each one of those days was, and just getting the shipments out daily. What kept you going through some of those days?
Yeah, so this is such a beautiful question, because to your point of everyone knows there's no overnight success, but yet we all still sometimes believe in it. So what's the missing thing, right? What's that missing hook? And for me, I was originally fighting to save my house. So like the kind of fear of losing something really is a great motivator. But the problem is it's not sustainable. It's a fear-based motivator. And so for me, that isn't the life I want. It's like that makes you wake up every morning with anxiety. And so it really did become to me the importance of having a mission. And so as we're building Quest, I'm just trying to figure out how not to lose my house, right? So it's like, okay, I need a pallet. What the hell is a pallet? Figure it out, otherwise you lose your house. So all along the way, I was thinking that. But over time, as Quest started to build, we were getting letters from people. And so there was one woman that I'll never forget, because my mum had a lot of health and weight issues. This one woman wrote in, and she had been 40 pounds. And in the hospital bed. I mean, she was anorexic and she was on the deathbed. And she wrote to us saying, "Thank you for creating Quest. It's made me okay with calories again." That is way more intensity, at least for me, than just helping someone lose weight, right? It was so resonant with me. And then there was another letter where this woman wrote in, and she said, "My son is type 1 diabetic. And every time he goes to birthday parties, I'm always a horrible mom that has to take cake away from him because he sees all these other kids eating it, but he will go into, obviously he can't eat it." And she's like, "But he can eat Quest without having an insulin spike. So thank you for the product. It's made me feel like a better mother." So I started to realize every time I was facing an obstacle, my fear-based motivation started to pivot into the mission-based motivation, which was like, "Lisa, you may not know this, and you have a choice with no judgment. It's your life, but you have a choice. You can stop when you face this obstacle, or you can help the anorexic community, or you can help the mothers that don't feel like good mothers because their kids are sick." And it's a choice I can make. There's no judgment. It's my life. And so every time I started to face these obstacles, I really did ask myself that no judgment question. What is the thing that I feel is the goal, right? Figure this out, get on stage. Those were my fears, the get in front of the camera. This is the goal that really aligns with the mission of helping people. But what is preventing me? It really is the ego. It really is the voice in my head saying I'm no good. And what the hell do you think you're doing, Lisa? You're going to be embarrassed. People are going to make fun of you, right? This is the whole voice in my head, which is the ego. And now, with no shame or judgment, just with clarity, ask yourself, what is more important to you, your ego or your goals? And now, in that moment, when you can ask yourself that with utter clarity, you can then decide and then pivot. So if my goal, in that situation, I really did say, it's not my ego. I want to help people so badly. Like that is my goal, my mission. I want to help people that I will keep moving forward. So I realized that the ego, the negative voice, was getting in my way and I cannot listen to it. So I started to really develop this thing that I went from fear-based to mission-based. Then I started, to your point, created a plan, because it has to be baby steps, because just telling myself, all right, Lisa, you want to create impact, so get on stage and speak in front of 10,000 people is so scary. Like you just cannot make that leap, because making that leap is exactly what holds people back. So I had to create a plan with these small little stepping stones in order to get to my goal, that my goal aligns with my mission. So you can see everything becomes this beautiful interconnectedness, where I say my final thing is getting on stage because I want to create impact, because I have a mission. And then I say stage because that was a fairly recent thing that I had to overcome. And then what is that baby step that I'm going to do? All right, I'm so fearful of getting on stage that I keep saying no to speaking gigs. So the first baby step is just to say yes. I don't even have to think about getting on stage right now. Baby step, to your point, is just say yes. So the very next thing I did is I told my team, the next person that reaches out, say yes. Because I knew I had to get over my insecurity. And if they approached me, I knew myself well, because know thyself, that I would then probably spit out no, out of fear without actually processing, oh, hang on a minute, I made a commitment to myself. So step one, tell your team to say yes. And that's exactly what I did. And then, of course, it ended up having to be TEDx. And I was like, great, the one thing that I say yes to, it's TEDx. And so then I just created a game plan, to your point, of what's the next baby step? What's that next baby step that allows me to eventually get on stage and give a speech? Now, my goal isn't to be amazing, Jeff. I haven't even said that. My goal is just to be on stage, because I give myself the grace to know anything I do for the first time is day one. You cannot approach anything thinking that you're going to be amazing when it's your first time. You know, I mean, it's like the fun analogy that I've recently been given is like, imagine you want to be a brain surgeon. Well, on day one, it's not like people are giving you human brains and actually giving you a scalpel and saying, oh, you'll figure it out. You give yourself the grace to not know what you're doing. You give yourself the grace to know that, hey, it's going to take practice and I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to get a lot of knowledge around this. And then, like one of my favorite movies, Karate Kid, you just have to wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. And eventually you will get great. And so when I went on the TEDx stage, I did all of that. I had this plan of these stepping stones that I really do lay out in the book of, I do this, I do this, I say this to myself. I wore, my Wonder Woman necklace, like all these things that I do in order to get on stage. And now I look back, it wasn't great, but you better believe, Jeff, I gave myself that pat on the back because I used to be the person that said no. And now I'm the person that doesn't let that stop me, the fear stop me.
There is so much to unpack in that answer. It's like a lot of the people watching this, either they've got an amazing business and they're an amazing business leader, or they're just starting out. And a lot of times people are just starting out. They think they have to get it perfect out of the gate, and no one does. Your first step is your first step. Your first talk is your first talk. Your first business is your first business. Your first launch is your first launch. It's going to be horrible, likely,
yeah,
but then, then you just, and I'm sure yours was not horrible, but
no, it was pretty bad.
I thought, Lisa, the first time I was interviewed on radio back, that was 25 years ago. And like you with TEDx, it was like this really big radio show. And they asked me to give them a bunch of questions to ask me. So I gave him a whole bunch of questions to ask me. And the guy, I was in studio and the DJ, I think that's what they called him then or do. And he looked at my questions and he just throws them aside and asked me a question that was completely off topic and actually implied that I believed something that I completely didn't believe. And I went, like dead air for like 15 seconds. I froze. I couldn't speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, it took me years to exercise that demon. But yeah, none of us are. And I mean, if we even look, like your first venture was not like the ultimate success or
yeah, no, let me jump in, because Tom and I, and that's the one thing, like, I never want people to think that, yeah, you touched like we did something that totally worked. This is after we had a domain website company, and we had a graphic design company, we had a photography company, because Tom and I, I do a lot of art and graphic design and stuff like that. So we tried multiple businesses. We had a real estate company. And so none of that, as we were starting it was like, okay, well, this was failing. It doesn't actually align with who we are. So, it's kind of know when to quit. Like, I have no problem in quitting things that don't serve me or don't serve my goals. And I think that it takes trying things over and over again to really figure out what that thing is for you. And even with my book, Radical Confidence, that we're talking about, Jeff, I had no idea how to write a book. I've never written a book before. So when people, Tom came to me and he's like, babe, you just got a book offer. A literary agent reached out to me, and I was like, oh, that's nice. And he's like, you don't seem excited. And I was like, oh, it's a great compliment. Thank you. And he's like, you're not going to consider it. And Jeff, this was a year and a half ago. I'd already built Quest that became $1 billion company. We'd already built Impact Theory that has over 500 million views on our content. And here I was, the very first words when Tom said that out of my mouth was, who would buy a book from me? So not even believing in yourself is also a part of it. And I'm okay with that. Like I've accepted that as part of who I am, but I don't let it dictate who I show up to be. So in those moments, literally out loud, the next words were, oh, the 14-year-old Lisa, the insecure 14-year-old Lisa is still with me. And I just gave myself the grace to go, oh, she's still here. That insecure person that got bullied and teased as a kid, that didn't believe in herself, that didn't feel like she was worthy, is still a part of me. And so I just embrace her, and I recognize that she shows up every time I'm going to start something new. And when she shows up, the first thing I say is like, what are you worried about? And the first words usually are, we don't have to, don't know how to write a book. And here's the truth, Jeff, I don't. And so I'm just like, oh, she's right. So now, instead of letting that stop me, what can I do to keep moving forward? And so I stopped and made a plan to say, of course, you don't know how to write a book. Why would you ever assume you do just because you can talk and just because you've been on camera? So now I'm going to go as being the student, and I'm going to go in like I need to learn. And so I will go in. So I called some friends, I called people and just asked them a bunch of questions. And so I just went in as a learner. And then the last piece is I gave myself the grace to write the book and know it may not do well. Now, I'm not going to go in there with the mentality that it may not do well. I'm going to go in there with like, I'm going to crush this. This is going to be New York Times #1. But still at the same time, it's about holding these two competing ideas in your mind, that you go in, giving it your all. You go in as the learner. You go in as the student. You give it every freaking ounce of your ability. And then if it doesn't do well, as the learner, you go, what can I learn from the fact that it totally tanked? And that allows you to keep showing up. And if I then said, I loved writing a book and it tanked, so I'm going to learn from it and write another one, then I've given myself the ability. Or I say, you know what, I actually hated this. I hated writing a book and it didn't do well. So now at least I have my answer, and now I can pivot and know I never wanted to write a book again. But either way, I need to see it as a win-win, because I'm the type of person that will, unfortunately, because that 14-year-old girl still exists, I will look outside of myself for the validation. I will look outside of myself for the self-worth. And we all know that looking for external validation anywhere is just a death to humanity. So I've just taught myself of how do I become proud and validate myself on anything I try new, regardless of the outcome.
I love that. I love that. You used a word, one of my favorite words, you used several times. One of my absolute favorite words in the world is grace. And that you gave yourself grace. And the idea that there is that 14-year-old Lisa, there's a 14-year-old Jeff, right? Yeah. And we all have that. And that 14-year-old person was who they needed to be at the time and was doing the best they could with what they had at the time. And they're still part of us. And they still serve us in some ways. And so we want to treat that part of ourselves with grace and with honor and still move along.
Yeah.
It's just, beautiful. So I want to jump forward a little bit and ask you, because Quest, you had an exit from Quest.
Correct.
That I think you guys did very, very well on. What was it like the day after that deal went through? What was that like?
All right. I love this question because it is one of the most beautiful and tragic answers I can possibly give. So we were selling a small portion of Quest first. So we basically were going from startup to build. People kind of think that if they see a valuation of your company, that actually means how much you have in your bank account. But we were still driving a Ford Focus that had a hole in the exhaust. And if you drove over 60 miles an hour, like the steering wheel would shake. And so we went from that to deciding with Tom's business partners, at the end of the day, there's no guarantee with anything. And especially when it comes to a food company, the reality is all you need is to give someone accidental food poisoning, and you never know where that's going to go, right, in your business. So we decided that we were going to sell a small piece of the company. Now, that small piece was a very large chunk of financial reward, but we were all in, okay, we're going to sell a small piece just in case. And so we get rumors that we've got a deal being made, and this sort of thing could take months and months and months. This sort of thing never happens overnight. And so we didn't tell anyone, we're waiting. And then we had rumors that it was going to happen this one specific morning. So Tom and I are working out, we're in a garage, and literally in between reps, Tom is pressing refresh on his phone, refresh in our bank account, right? And in that moment, it was like one refresh later, you go from basically zero to a very large chunk of money. Your life changes over like that. And so it was like, oh my God, we can't believe this actually happened. Let's take a selfie. We took a selfie, and then we got up, got changed, and went back to work. We didn't tell a soul at work. We just acted like nothing had happened. Now, why? It was amazing. We went and celebrated after work, but we were so aligned with our mission that money doesn't actually have the impact if you have a mission that you're so tied to. And so while it was beautiful, we literally got changed and went to work that day. Now, the horrifying part of the story is in the celebration part. So as we're struggling, we're doing this startup in these moments of, I'm sure everyone knows, right? It's difficult. It's long days. You're wondering sometimes what on earth you're doing, why you're doing it, why you keep doing it. Everyone's warning you it's going to tank, and, you start doubting yourself. And so in those moments, Tom and I would drive around Beverly Hills in our little Ford Focus, and we would drive around and just dream of the house we would buy one day. And we would actually have fun arguing over the style of house. And so now imagine it actually happens. We're now actually in the position, and we actually buy a house in Beverly Hills. Now, my dream, I'm always attaching my dream to a vision of how I want to feel. And so the feeling was, I'm a 90s girl. So I was like, I wanted to do a 90s hip hop video version by a waterfall and pour Dom Perignon over me. And so that was the fun dream that I had. And so we actually get the house. It actually has a waterfall. And I actually am standing there with a Dom Perignon in my hand. And I'm just like, I can't believe this is actually my life. Now, leading up to this, I'll just give a caveat. I'd had about 15 years of small gut issues where it was progressively getting worse, but I just kept ignoring it because, of course, I was just so focused on business, being an entrepreneur. I literally ignored all the signs of my health. Cut to this day, we're celebrating. I've got a bottle of Dom Perignon in my hand. I take a swig. Like that, it felt like my gut erupted. Actually erupted. After that day, Jeff, I could barely eat anything for about a year. I couldn't stand up for longer than 5 minutes at a time. And so having looked back now, I had such gut despair where I had a lot of different issues, SIBO, candida, parasite, leaky gut, and I didn't realize what I had been doing this whole time. As we were building Quest, as I basically ignored my self-care, all I was focused on was being an entrepreneur. All I was focused on was building the company. And what happened was, on the day of celebrating, my self-care or my health said, oh, okay, you want to celebrate? Let me show you what you've done to me. And it just fell apart. And the reason why that's horrific, but it also is actually the most beautiful story and thing that's ever happened to me. Because in that moment, it was the most beautiful realization that, oh, success actually means nothing if you don't have your health. Your success means nothing if you can't even stand up for longer than 5 minutes at a time. If I find it so hard to even hug my husband for over a year, success and money mean nothing. And even now, 6 years later, I still cannot go to a restaurant without calling and finding out what ingredients they use. I still have to eat at home most of the time. I still have to, at least while I have dinner, I have to create a space around me. I can't be working. I have to take deep breaths, all because I neglected my self-care because I thought success meant everything. I thought that was what we were striving for. And so, I can't remember the question. I'm sorry, but it was one of those moments where, with the moment of where the money hit the account, the success, it was a beautiful lesson because it happened so early, literally on as we bought the house, that it just reaffirmed to me and Tom that our mission is everything, that showing up for yourself first, I know it's cliche, but putting the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help anyone else is priority number one. And then actually helping people, actually making a difference is secondary. And so every day I work on my morning routine. I work on my self-care before I show up for anyone else or anything else. Even before this interview here, I made sure that I had time to eat the right breakfast, to have my workout, which really does fuel my mind. And so I learned the lesson very early on that the success is, I love success. I think monetization, I think wealth creation can be beautiful, but it's just like a superpower. It's like it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. It's up to the actual person who has it to then dictate how they show up with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a remarkable story. There's so much there. I think wealth creation is incredibly important, and it's just a piece of the puzzle. It's just a part of the success.
Yeah.
I know for me, the first time, I didn't have an exit, but I had a very, very big revenue event that literally was like, okay, in this hour, I made 10 times more than I ever thought. And I know I had like a real sense of emptiness and like, okay, is this all there is? I think most people I know who've had gone through a big exit or had a big revenue event, it's a very emotional experience that isn't all 100% positive. And here it sounds like your body was saying, hey, remember me?
Yeah.
Take care of me. You've been taking care of all this external. It's time to focus on me. It sounds, like, did your gut say, yeah, your body really did know this is time to send you the signal to...
It must have been, Jeff, because I was battling with gut issues for like 15 years. And, so for it to happen on that day, I don't know, it just seems a little too suspicious, like I don't know if people believe in a higher power or meant to be, but to be honest, I sometimes even don't even question it. It's like it came at the most perfect time, because it taught me immediately that focusing on emotion and feeling and health is the most imperative thing. And it made me realize how much I'd let go of it, that I put myself last, that all the things that I loved that gave me joy in my spare time, I'd given up, because I had the mentality back then, because I'd gone from being a supportive wife to now being an entrepreneur. I was still looking for external validation in the things that I was doing because I didn't feel secure in myself. And so every day where it was like a decision between, you can draw and take care of your mind, because I love art, you can draw and take care of your mind. But then I would like push myself out. But Lisa, like, you have to keep going with work, because where would you get the validation from? Because I was getting so many pats on the back for I was getting validation for the fact that I would been someone that didn't know anything and then helped build Quest. So now I was actually creating another trap for myself, because I was so proud of what I'd done. I was so worried that if I slowed down, I wouldn't get the validation. And then it was like, well, where was I going to feel good about myself from? And that also became the pivot of, external validation is like, I've got a chapter called Validation is for Parking. So it's like, I was like, oh my God, this is a trap I'm about to fall into. How do I overcome it? And that's the thing that I do a lot as well. I don't judge myself. I give myself the grace to feel what I feel, but then say, well, I know this is true. How do I make sure that I overcome this as I move forward? And so all my health, everything that I've just said really taught me so many powerful lessons in so many different areas.
So Lisa, I could talk to you for hours about this, and I'd love to keep on going, but I know you've got lots going on today. Where can people find out about the book?
Yeah, thank you. So they can go to radicalconfidence.com, but you can also get it anywhere books are sold. Target, Amazon both have been amazing partners to me. So those are the two places I pretty much push. But they can follow me at Lisa Bilyeu as well on Instagram, where I try and show, especially in my stories, I try and show all the realities of how difficult it is for me to, on a day-to-day basis, run a business, take care of my health, and then take care of my mindset. Because I think it's important to see the realities of what it takes to show up every day and do this sort of thing. And it's an echo of the radical confidence piece, where it's like, no, guys, I don't want people to think I'm confident all the time. I don't want people to think that I live a beautiful, perfect life, because that's doing a disservice to them. So that's at Lisa Bilyeu on Instagram.
That's awesome. I love watching your Insta feed. Isn't just all the glossy front stage stuff. That's what I love about it. And getting distribution in Target is doing big things. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. But radicalconfidence.com, you can put your email address in
Exactly.
and you'll send them all kinds of goodies. And
Yes.
Lisa, thank you so much.
Jeff, thank you so much. Like you said, we've been getting to know each other over like the last year. And so this to me has been such a pleasure. And that's also, I just want to add another little thing to people listening is like, make sure that the decisions you say yes to actually fill your heart, because it would be very tough for me to keep showing up if I didn't enjoy this, and to be in your presence and have these deep discussions and actually hopefully create impact in someone's life is so meaningful to me. And getting to know you as well better has just been such a wonderful thing. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Lisa.